The hospital was so cold that night. The lamps in the hallway reflected pale light on the glossy floor, and the smells of medicines mixed with the tension hanging in the air. At the end of the corridor, Jimin ran nonstop, his breath panting. His chest felt tight, as if he had just run after something that was almost gone. In his grasp, his phone was still vibrating, the last message from one of their managers. Taeyong fell unconscious on set. He's in the hospital now. Just that sentence, but enough to make Jimin's whole world collapse. When he finally got to the front of the treatment room, the glass door reflected his own face. Pale, enlarged eyes, tears that began to flow without permission. He pushed the door open without thinking. Just then, a sound that made his heart seem to stop beating was heard. A weak cry, yet full of pain. Ah, that's Taeyong's voice. Jimin froze for a moment. His body seemed unable to move, but his heart refused to shut up. He ran towards the bed where Taeyong was lying shivering, his face pale, and cold sweat soaked his temples. The infusion hose stuck to his hand. The bedside monitor emitted fast-moving green stripes. Taeyong. Jimin's voice trembled. He held Taeyong's hand tremblingly, his eyes staring deep, trying to find a glimmer of consciousness behind his best friend's eyes. Taeyong screamed again, this time louder. His body curled up, enduring the pain, and Jimin spontaneously pulled him into an embrace. I'm here. Please look at me. Her voice was hoarse, her tears falling down the pillow. He didn't care about the doctors and nurses who were trying to calm him down. Don't go, please, she whispered, a voice that could only be heard by a heart struggling between life and loss. Time seemed to stop. Jimin's heartbeat raced along with the sound of the engine in the room. Every time Taeyong screamed, Jimin hugged him tighter, as if trying to hold all the pain from escaping his best friend's body. Please hold on. I can't bear to lose you, whispered Jimin, barely audible. The nurse asked Jimin to step back a little so they could give him pain medication. Jimin didn't want to. Leave me here, he said slowly but firmly. His gaze is full of fear that is only understood by someone who truly loves someone else more than himself. After a few minutes that felt like a lifetime, Taeyong's screams finally subsided. His breathing is still heavy, but more stable. Doctors breathed a sigh of relief, signaling that the condition began to improve temporarily. Jimin was still holding her hand, his fingers clasped together as if released, the world would be destroyed again. The room was now quiet, only the sound of the monitor machine was heard. Jimin sat on the side of the bed, looking at Taeyong's weak face. His heart was broken to see that the always cheerful and strong figure was now lying helpless. He remembered how Taeyong always smiled the widest in the midst of their busy lives, always being the most patient when everyone was tired. Why didn't you say you were sick? Jimin muttered slowly, his eyes looking at Taeyong's still pale face. Taeyong didn't answer, but his lips moved slightly. Jimin leaned over, bringing his ears closer. I don't want to make you worry. The voice was almost a whisper. Jim's tears welled up in an instant. You're stupid, Taeyong. You think I won't worry? He held Taeyong's hand even tighter. I'm more afraid of losing you than anything. Several hours passed. It was getting late, but Jimin was still there. He refused the nurse's invitation to rest. He just sat there, holding Taeyong's hand, which was now slightly warm. Sometimes he smiled a little to see Taeyong asleep, but every time the monitor machine beeped a little faster, he immediately panicked. He looked at the screen as if his life depended on it. In that silence, Jimin recalled all their memories. The laughter in the rehearsal room, the stupid jokes in the middle of the night, the moments they reinforced each other backstage. It all felt so far away, but also so close, like a shadow that wouldn't go away. He realized how deeply their relationship was formed, not only because they were a group, but because they really cared for each other. When Taeyong finally opened his eyes slowly, Jimin immediately approached, his eyes watering. Are you aware? He asked hoarsely. Taeyong smiled slightly, weakly but sincerely. Why are you crying? He asked quietly, trying to joke even though his voice was barely audible. Jimin laughed between his tears. You really still have time to joke, huh? Taeyong moved his hand, trying to touch Jimin's cheek. I knew you were coming, he said quietly. Jimin lowered his head, shedding tears in Taeyong's hands. I won't leave you alone, Tae. I promise. A few hours later, both were silent. There were no words spoken, only glances that understood each other. Outside the window, it began to rain slowly, as if the sky was crying with relief that one could finally rest in peace. Taeyong looked out the window and whispered, I was scared, Jimin. I thought I'd never see you again. Jimin immediately grasped his hand stronger. Don't ever say anything like that again. We still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of laughs to share, Tae. Taeyong smiled again, this time more sincerely. You've always been here, right? He asked softly. Jimin nodded. Always. That night, the world outside the hospital room may be going on, but for both of them, time seems to stop at that moment, when fear, emotion, and affection are mixed together. Jimin finally looked down, his head resting on the edge of the bed, still grasping Taeyong's hand, while his eyes slowly closed from fatigue. Taeyong looked at her in silence, realizing how much this friend meant to him in his life. He raised his feeble hand, gently patting Jimin's head. Thank you, he whispered, before finally falling asleep again with a small smile on his face. Early in the morning, sunlight began to penetrate the curtains. Jimin woke up, looking at Taeyong's face, who now looked much calmer. He took a deep breath, feeling the heaviness in his chest slowly dissipate. You know, Tae? He said quietly with a smile. You really scared me to death. Taeyong opened his eyes and smiled faintly. I know, but I promise, from now on I will take better care of myself. Jimin smiled in relief, his eyes glazed over. Promise me you won't make me cry again. They laughed a little together. Laughter is gentle, but meaningful, a reminder that in every pain, there is always someone who will never leave. A night full of tears was now replaced by a morning full of hope. And among the sunlight that poured into that hospital room, two friends who had weathered the storm together looked at each other with unspeakable gratitude. Jimin held Taeyong's hand once more, this time not out of fear, but out of a warm feeling he didn't want to let go. Good morning, Tae, he said with a small smile. Good morning, Jimin. Taeyong replied in a hoarse but calm voice. They know that no matter what comes next, they will still walk together, because the night Taeyong screamed in pain and Jimin ran to hug him was a night that carved out something that time cannot erase: sincerity, love, and eternal brotherhood. Several days have passed since that unforgettable night. The hospital now feels warmer, no longer a place full of tension, but a small space that stores calm and gratitude. Taeyong slowly begins to recover, although his body is still weak. He often sat by the window, staring at the clear morning sky, thinking about how thin the distance between loss and miracle was. Jimin, as always, was never far away. He arrived earlier than anyone, bringing coffee and a warm smile that was always the same. You look better today, he said, putting a glass of water on a small bedside table. Taeyong turned his head, his eyes sparkling in the sunlight. If you say it, I believe it, he replied with a small smile. They laughed softly, but in the laughter there was something deeper, a feeling of relief that was difficult to explain. Every time Jimin saw Taeyong laugh, his heart felt at peace. That night of screams and fear still haunts in the corner of his mind. But now the memories have turned into a reminder that their friendship is truly irreplaceable. One afternoon, while Jimin was reading a message from the fans, Taeyong suddenly fell silent. His eyes stared out the window, and his voice sounded low. Jimin, when I was in pain that night, I heard your voice. Out of all the noise, your voice is the only one I can hear. It calms me down. Jimin was silent, his chest tight. He turned his face away, trying to hold back the tears. I don't want you to leave, Tae. I don't know what to do if that happens. Taeyong looked at her, holding back a smile and tears at the same time. You know, I feel alive because you don't stop calling my name. Quiet for a moment. Jimin then looked at his best friend with an inexplicable a mixture of love, gratitude, and a little fear. You promise, yes, from now on take care of yourself. Not just for me, but for everyone who loves you. Taeyong nodded slowly. I promise. And you too, don't be so hard on yourself. You should also rest, Jimin. A gentle smile appeared on both of their faces. That moment felt like a new promise, that while the world outside could change as quickly as the wind, between them there would always be a safe place to return. When night fell again, Jimin was still sitting there, just like the first night he came. But this time, the atmosphere was different. No more screaming, no more fear. Only silence is full of tranquility. He saw Taeyong sleeping peacefully, then whispered quietly, Thank you for coming back, Tae. The world will not be the same without you. The room lights dimmed and outside the stars shone softly. The rain had stopped, leaving a fresh scent in the air. And in the middle of that quiet night, two hearts that were once separated by pain are now beating in the same rhythm again. A sign that true friendship will never be lost to time or fear.